How stoked were you to see Scheana Shay back on our screens?
I wish I had a pillow nearby to scream into.
Well, the question begs, would you have laughed or would you have cried after your scream?
I like to think that I would laugh afterwards.
I think I would have cried.
Thanks, Scheana.
Thanks, Scheana.
Bros and shows. I gotta have me my bros and shows. Bros and shows. Bros and shows. I gotta have me my bros and shows.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Bros and Shows. I am your co-host, Steele Russell, joined as always by the one and only Scheana Goots. What's up, dude?
We've got a real problem on our hands.
Oh, boy.
Real problem with the Valley.
You're coming in hot. What's up?
Yeah. So you've heard the rumors that ratings have dropped.
Yep.
There's a lot of issues. Even somebody putting things out there saying that they were thinking about putting it on pause.
Yep.
Which Bravo has said they're not going to.
Not true.
That's fair. They've got a problem on their hands. If we have more episodes like this one, it's going to be rough.
This was a weird episode. This was an irritating episode. What are the ratings at? Like, what's the drop in ratings? Is it like a significant drop, or are we getting the Peacock effect?
No, it's not. So this is including Peacock. 700K for the first episode, which is very good for them. Last episode was under 300.
Really? Why?
Jax. Got to be Jax.
Because he's off, or because of the shit
think
he was doing?
So I thought about that too. I think it is partly because he's not on the show anymore.
But mostly because it's too
Mostly
dark.
because it's too dark. Yep.
I think that's true. I think you run the risk of... We said that in the first episode. When that shit got so sketchy. It's like, we're towing the line here of like, we're not supposed to see this kind of stuff. It was abuse. You watched abuse on a show.
Yeah, we watched abuse, and then we watched the abuser get more camera time.
Correct.
So that's a bad recipe. So I feel like it probably definitely dropped. What was that, episode 2?
Yeah.
So we'll say it dropped after episode 2. We, as podcasters that have watched a lot of these shows, we can call it out, but we're going to continue to watch, and we can kind of compartmentalize.
Sure.
And say the rest of the show is really good. Keep these assholes together. They seem like they're going to have a lot of fun. It's going to be chaos. It's going to be great. But I understand why people stopped watching for Jax.
I completely get it. And I think that's why we talk about a lot. Get him out of here. He doesn't need to come back to the show. And I think their best plan of action moving forward would just be to come out and say, hey, he's not coming back, and would bring viewers back to this show because it is a good show. And you do have a solid cast in spite of Jax Taylor.
Yep.
But that is a risk you run when you show those kinds of things on TV. And honestly, to the point of Jax getting more screen time after the fact, I look at fucking Jermaine. Because Jeremiah is part of the production crew now. He's an EP on this show, or a producer. I don't care which one. But again, we see another example of horrible behavior from a guy. I'm not saying they went full-blown redemption arc, but you still gave him enough time to explain his side of things. The minute that he was doing that shit on camera, they should have shoved him in a car, drove him to a treatment center, and then stopped.
Yep.
But instead, we listen to Britany talk about the rage text. We read the rage text after watching him abuse her on TV. Then we see more abuse via text message.
Yep.
So this went from, yeah, we know it's dark, and yeah, we don't want to see it on TV, to now you're shoving it down our throats. So I can completely understand why people that aren't in our situation where we have to watch these said, fuck this.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the rest of us who continued to watch it had to watch this episode tonight.
This was bizarre.
This is way worse for me. After all of that shit happened, we knew what was going to happen when it came to Jax. We heard all the things in the offseason. We somewhat braced ourselves. This episode was fucking awful. From start to finish, this episode sucked balls.
It was just a big zero. The drama they decided to focus on was so convoluted because of the Nia and the Danny thing, and we'll get into all of that. And I do understand Jasmine's perspective to a certain extent.
Yeah.
And I'll talk about that
She
later.
would stay. Yeah, I don't want to get into it.
Yeah, we'll get there when we get there. But let's jump in, because I agree. This was quite possibly one of my least favorite Valley episodes between both seasons.
I think this was the worst Valley episode.
It might have been, and that's not good timing considering they're fighting ratings now.
Yeah.
So hopefully they're able to figure it out and take a different approach. But let's jump in, because we got Britt, we got Zach, we got Jasmine, and we got Nia. They're finishing up the conversation from last episode, and I love that Zach leads it off by calling out Britany. He's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Did you not protect Jax all the time for his behavior, for the drugs, for the alcohol, for everything he was doing? And she's like, well, yeah, but... And then Jasmine, who has taken on the role of Britany's mouthpiece.
Yep.
And again, her perspective of this whole thing, and it comes out later why she's so triggered, and I understand that because she has an actual experience with Danny, and it made her feel a type of way, and seeing him drunk again makes her feel a type of way. Fine. Okay. That I can get on board with. But when she's saying, you know, she's on display and she calls out one little thing, it's like, again, guys, we talked about this ad nauseum last week. Nobody there looked at Danny and said he's not drunk.
Yeah.
Nobody at home watching didn't think he was drunk. Why is the semantics so important in this scene?
I don't really understand it. And I think it's just them attacking Nia because she's decided to live a normal life.
Yeah, that's what it
where
feels like.
they're going to fight behind closed doors and they're not going to air out their shit on TV.
Mm-hmm.
I guess we have to have some perspective as an audience. The things that we usually see on reality TV don't happen in real life. And if
No.
it was real life, it would be problematic.
Sure.
This is not part of that. You can look at this and say, wow, okay, you guys seem pretty buttoned up. Maybe you could share a little bit more. Nia shares a little bit more, and I don't want to get into that. That pissed me off even more. But the biggest problem with all of this is all three of them, and Janet doesn't get involved in this situation, but Britany talking about how she's sharing her life and she has to do this and has to do that. Nobody forced you to share your life, Britt.
No, and you're married to Jax Taylor, so obviously it's going to be a little bit more polarizing and a little more upfront because he's a gigantic piece of shit.
Correct. And Nia was correct last week when she said, just because you're going through something doesn't mean you have to attack me. About the apology thing.
Okay,
We've seen this video 3 times now.
sure.
It is in total about 5 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
They sat down and filmed the whole scene. Show us the whole scene at this
I
point.
agree.
If it's going to be this big of an issue and we're going to drag this on forever, and, you know, we even get towards the end of this episode when Jasmine says, I have to have a conversation with Danny. Jason also says the same thing. Let's get the whole fucking video.
I agree.
You guys filmed the whole scene. Let's see what the context is. And we can be, you know, the people that sit here as a third party and say, yeah, you know what? There's contrition there. He feels bad. This could be a one-off situation. Right now, Danny is drunk. He worked all night. He came home, or he came back. He got drunk at the winery, and he fell asleep. He's not bothering anybody by doing that.
Everyone else was also drinking, by the way.
Vacation.
So the accusations they're making and the snafu that they're causing because of this, it was confusing for me from the jump. Like, I understood where Britany was, not where she was coming from, where she was trying to come from, and saying, you guys don't share anything. It's like, well, no one really pressed Nia about it. You waited till she left the table, and then you started talking shit because she said my husband's tired instead of my husband's drunk.
And do you know why they're doing all of this, by the way?
Why?
Because they're drunk.
Correct.
You've got a drunk sleeping person over here that you're bitching about, but you guys are drunk, not making any sense to somebody who's standing alone, confused as to what you're coming after her for. And by the way, the nicest person on the cast.
Yeah.
Who has been there for every single one of you to comfort you when you go through your shit.
Never talk shit behind
And
your back.
never asks for anything back, by the way.
Nope.
When there are a lot of times last year when she was going through postpartum and she was explaining to all of us, the audience, that she was going through that and having a hard time, did any of them step up and say, you know what, we need to sit with you and talk with you? They did, sure, for the cameras. I don't fucking believe that any of these losers are going to go over to Nia's house off camera and go help her.
I don't either.
No, they're dorks.
Yep, I don't either. And, you know, for Jasmine to say no one has Britney's back, it's like, what?
Yeah, that's fucking
all anyone's done. Everyone's had her back during this whole Jax thing, so that makes no sense
By the way,
either.
why do we need to have Britney's back
For
right
what?
now?
There's nothing
because
going-
Nia's
yeah.
not sharing her life on reality TV, and Britney did. We have to have Britney's back right now.
Makes no sense.
Jasmine, again, you're the person who should be stepping up here and saying, look, this made me uncomfortable. This is what's going on. And then people can have your back. And
Yeah.
you know what? You can probably have a constructive conversation with Nia because after what we see towards the end of the episode, she knows about it. And I'm sure she's probably waiting for it. She's probably sitting there like, yeah, you know what? We do need to have a whole conversation about all of this. If it still makes you uncomfortable to see him drunk, you and I should sit down together. Danny can be there. Melissa can be there. We can have a full discussion. And you guys will get to the bottom of it and probably feel better afterwards.
Correct.
Instead, you're taking Britney's side because she's pissed off that Nia's not sharing.
Because, like,
It's stupid.
it is. And, like, later when Jasmine's at the table with Nia and everybody and she's talking through it and she gets to that point where, wow, maybe I'm not over it. It's like,
Yeah.
that's okay. And that's what the root of this
Correct.
whole thing is. And the way she handled the end, I was like, all right, I can get on board with that because you seem like you're somewhat sorry for the way you handled things the night before. You're understanding that the root of the whole thing wasn't just that Danny was drunk and Nia wasn't acknowledging. It was actually what went on between you two. So I was like, all right, you seem to have gotten to a good place. And then the way that it ends, I'm like,
Nope, you're
oh,
done.
No,
We're
it's
done
a
with this.
180. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yep.
We'll get there when we get there. But Danny wakes up and like walks into this shitstorm. And he's like, what the fuck's going on? Nobody explains it to him. So he goes back to his room and Nia and Danny sit down for a talk. And he's just like, what the fuck? And she goes through it. She's like, everyone's saying Nia's lying. Not one person came to me at the table, by the way, and said, is Danny drunk?
Mm-hmm.
I just kept saying that you were tired.
Yeah.
And you did drink too much, by the way, and that's neither here nor there. And Danny's like, well, no, I didn't. I'm like, whoa, you're not going to help here. Just, you do a lot more.
Yeah, what he was like, I
drank the same as everyone else. It's like, don't just say I was
he
drunk.
drank the same as Jesse. It's just that Jesse could handle it more.
And Jesse started way earlier, so he had a longer time.
And
to
Jesse
drink
also
much.
reiterated that his ex-wife is a whore, and
Correct, and
accused
no
her of
one's
cheating
saying
again.
shit to him. I'm like, what the fuck is this double standard going on right now?
Oh, dude, it's double standards across the
it's
board.
wild.
Yeah.
And that's not good for a show.
This is a crazy double standard too, by the way, if we're going to just focus in on Danny's drinking right now. What happened last year? Britany got accused of drinking too much by Jax.
And we saw Jax yell at her through the door.
And Britany was saying, I'm a mom. I've got a lot going on. When I get some time with my friends, I go a little crazy and I have shots because, that's what she does. She's going to be ripping shots. Everybody wants a shot. The chef coming in, you want some shots? That's Britany's thing. So why is it a problem now that Danny's doing it?
Because
Jasmine didn't explain the whole situation to you. You're now bitching at Nia for something. So the whole double standard thing is crazy with these people.
it's so dumb and
And it's not entertaining. And
It's
that's the
not.
worst part.
It's not entertaining. It's getting stuck on semantics.
Yeah.
We hate when we get stuck on semantics. It's word choice and it's so fucking dumb.
Yeah.
We can move on from this, but that's the best point. The reason why they're blowing this up is because 90% of the people in there are fucked up relationships. Danny and Nia are solid, and they want them to have problems because they make themselves feel worse about their own relationships. That's not their fault. And also, they decide to handle things differently. Can you argue that because they're on reality TV, they need to be a little bit more open about things they're going through? Sure. That's a valid point. The way that you're going about it with this is not a sticking point. No one at home, promise, because we're the ones at home, no one at home gives a fuck if you say he's sleepy or he's drunk, because he's both, and we all get that.
Yeah.
So dumb. It's such a whiff. But then you get Janet, Britany, and Jasmine like debriefing, which great. And these two are talking about the tequila swig that Danny took in the closet, which I can agree if you're hiding and slugging from the bottle, it's a little weird. And they bring up clearly he has a drinking problem. Just talk about it. Janet's been with an addict and an alcoholic before. Okay. Not sure how that correlates, but
Sure.
I have a whole thing to say
Also,
about that.
the whole, him slugging, which we talked about last week,
Yeah.
there's a lot of problems there.
Sure.
Mostly the fact that it's it's room temperature tequila. What are you doing? Why are you doing that?
Well, I mean,
It could have also very easily not been a hidden thing. It could have just been simple, like he said. This is where the alcohol was. Is it still a problem that he goes in and grabs a high noon and then he looks up and goes, "Oh, I want to swig of
and
tequila"?
the shutting of the door is
There's some weird shit in there, yeah, for sure. Shutting of the door, maybe the door shut behind him. Who knows? But again, this could easily be Janet saw it and is blowing it up to something else.
More than likely.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree that there's some
something
cause
in
for
there.
concern.
Yeah.
For sure, but this is a weird way to go
Go
about it.
about it the right way.
Yeah, she's like, no one cares about the nap. It's the hiding and it's the denial. You know what you should do then? Talk about it behind Nia's back a lot on TV. That's a great way to handle this whole thing. But Danny and Nia are still talking, and Nia's like, I support Britany all the time, and anytime I have an issue, I bring it to her. I don't talk behind her back, and that's what hurts Nia the most, is just them talking behind her back. And she goes to a confessional. She's like, look, Danny and I are more reserved. We protect one another because we feel like if we're fighting, it's nobody else's problem. I'm like, that's a very normal thing to do. It's a very normal thing to do in a relationship in real life. Again, if cast members have an issue with you guys not addressing certain things on camera because that is part of the job, okay, fine.
Yep.
But the hill they chose to die on to support that theory was the dumbest one they could have picked. He's drunk. He's tired. Who fucking cares? But we get to the morning and everyone's going their separate ways. You got cars trying to leave early to avoid the awkwardness, which is also a problem for me. Like, address it in the morning. Why are we shifting around? Like, make them talk in the morning, but whatever. Let's get to your favorite scene because we get Michelle and Scheana going on a hike and they've gotten really close. She sold her house. Isabella and Summer, they're very close. It's all really nice,
This is the most manufactured scene
in Valley history.
in Valley history.
Yeah,
God,
easily.
This was so stupid. This was such a waste of time.
It looked like Scheana was reading off of cue cards.
Yeah.
Like, it was so bad.
And you know Lala's in next episode, too.
Oh, God.
So we got to go back to back.
So, like,
Disclaimer before the episode starts, please.
1, 2, we're on a downward trend with this show.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're going to bring in those two?
Yep.
That seems like a bad idea to me. Thanks, Jermaine. God damn it.
You know what's
God damn it. We said this before the season, and the season started off so well.
I know.
And then the Jax shit. And now this shit.
Uh-huh.
And then Scheana and Lala. And fucking Jermaine strikes again. Jeremiah ruins shows. No one listens to us. We say this all the time. We've called it out since VPR finale. Jermaine is a problem. He fucks up shows. He fucks up good shows. Stop signing him on to do more shows. What the fuck? How hard is it? And why does Bravo continuously shoot themselves in the foot with good shows?
Why are they not putting the fun people from VPR on
I
here?
have no idea.
Where's Schwartz?
I don't know. I would
Katie.
love to
I know
see
Katie
Schwartz
probably doesn't want to be on it. Ariana probably doesn't want to be on it.
because they don't need it.
The fame-hungry losers want to be on it.
Yes, the ones that pined for attention to get back on the screen and pined for a paycheck, those are the ones we have back.
You know, we got an email. It's like, I feel like you guys would love to know this, and this was an official email. You guys can support Lala's, I think it was like a PETA thing that she's doing.
Oh, she did this PETA photo
The whole
shoot.
like SeaWorld,
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
anti-SeaWorld thing, which by the way, great cause.
Yeah, we're on
Love the
board.
cause.
We're on board for the cause.
Could not care less about Lala. You came to the wrong people.
No, we don't give a shit. We give a shit about SeaWorld being a fucked up place,
Yeah,
but like,
yeah.
oh, I didn't expect to have this much animosity. I thought we were just gonna like shrug this one through, and I guess not. It's pissing me off
No,
already.
I've been pissed off since I watched it.
But let's talk about Ron, because Michelle's like, everything's perfect, but then with Jesse, it's all been a disaster. If this guy really loves you, the ex-husband wouldn't be this much of a problem. I just don't know if I can deal with a crazy ex. Well, then you're a pussy.
He is, for sure, old crazy eyes Aaron. The other problem is, and this is kind of funny, if both Michelle and Jesse, if one of them could just not react or not be so petty,
It's impossible.
it would be done. The other one would lose interest. The other one would stop. They would feel like neglected. They wouldn't be able to do it anymore. Because they're both doing it to each other, it's like crack. Like they need it.
Yeah.
I need to be as petty as possible because I love the reaction that I get from her. And when she comes back and she does it to me, I love it even more.
Yeah.
Going back and forth. Like it's a fucked up relationship. I'm sure Aaron doesn't seem like a normal person. But
No.
a normal person could be like, maybe I'm going to break up with you because you can't stop doing this with your ex.
That would be a different story.
It's not because Jesse's showing up at like 3:00 in the morning screaming, "Give me my daughter back."
Right.
Which I don't think is happening.
No. He's
don't
not
think-
claiming that that's a thing.
I know.
For the record.
But like that would be a problem.
Sure.
That would be hey, you've got a crazy ex-husband.
He's invading your
This
actual
is-
life.
This is brutal. I do love you, but like, we've only been dating for a year and cheating for 2 years before that. So maybe we just kind of like hang out a little bit and figure this thing out. No. It's also the fact that you're doing this back to Jesse. You're so engulfed in this ex relationship, and I know you've got him in your life because you guys share a daughter. You got to figure this out.
I agree.
And obviously, Michelle's not going to read that like, oh, I need to stop doing this with Jesse.
No,
I need to
it's
just leave him alone. Like, no.
all of this would go away. And like, I'm not blaming Michelle any more so than I'm blaming Jesse. Like you said, the problem is they're the same fucking person. So they just know how to poke each other and they continue to do it.
Yep.
But Aaron's reasoning of like, it's been hard to accept and it might be better if we're not together. It's like, is Jesse calling you?
No.
Is he showing up to your house?
No chance.
No, your only job here is to support your girlfriend who you claim to love, whose daughter says I love you to you, by the way.
Yeah.
If the daughter is at that point where she's saying I love you, you better be able to hang in there just because Jesse's a little nuts.
Yeah.
Like I didn't like Aaron from the jump because he decided to get involved in the parenting conversation. This is just another strike against him. And then him just being weird is his third strike. Not
Thank
that
God
weird's a
Scheana
problem.
was there to provide some insight, though.
She didn't do anything.
Say anything?
No.
I can't actually think of anything.
I
that she
didn't
said.
write down anything that
No
she
Scheana
said.
quotes?
Not one Scheana quote. I didn't even notice that until I looked
I
at
remember a wow, that's really tough. Yeah.
it. What do we need this
Thank you, Scheana.
for? Like, what are
could've
they
just had-
doing to the fucking show? What happened?
Could have just been Michelle. And by the way, we didn't really need the scene. I mean, I guess.
We didn't
sure,
need this
whatever.
scene. We didn't need this scene. She could have talked about Aaron with somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are we
I was going to
doing
say we could just have her with like AirPods walking that trail,
Talking by-
to Scheana,
on the phone?
and then we don't hear Scheana. And we don't see Scheana.
We barely heard Scheana anyway. My whole point is, what the fuck how does this show take such a 180 in one episode?
I don't know.
It's bizarre.
It's so bad.
Like, it's hard to do that.
It was so tough. I haven't had the urge to turn off a Bravo show in a while.
I was scrolling.
I wanted to turn it off.
I had to stop and rewind so many
I think my
times.
levels are scrolling is somewhere in the middle. Like if it's boring, scroll.
Yeah.
Obviously. If it's really irritating, also scroll.
Yeah.
But in a different way, like an angry scroll.
It's a
you know what I
scroll
mean?
with like a glance up. and
I'm
like,
going
oh,
to Twitter to like get pissed off about something like for the
Right.
Tush Push. Which, you know,
Tush
shout out
Push
Tush
is
Push.
still around.
Here to stay.
Yep.
One more season. But this was the ultimate. I just wanted to hit that X so
it was
bad.
just so
get rid of it.
irritating, dude. It was so irritating. But let's get to Jesse and his life coach, Scott.
That was the life coach. Remember
Yeah.
we were trying to think of the life coach
Yep, that
recently?
was him.
It was him.
It was
yeah.
Scott, yep.
And they showed that scene. I'm like, that's the fucking
Yeah,
guy.
same. As soon as I
Yeah,
saw
yeah.
him, I was like, there he
He's
is.
just like a friend.
Yeah, and this is
That
just
happens
a
to maybe
dude
be a life coach.
that charges his friends money to talk to him about their
Conversation was
shit.
Great though. But this was the only part of the episode, and then this isn't part of the Jesse bit. This was the only part of the episode where I'm like, this is kind of funny.
It was kind of funny because at the same time, it's like people pay you for this advice. Like, oh my God, because they're sitting there talking, and, you know, Jesse's mad at himself because of how he reacted to everything. And he's like, you know, I get triggered way too easily, and I'm trying to work my way through this whole thing. And we get more from the scene of Michelle and Jesse going back and forth, which I think is important for context, because before he called her a whore and before she threw the drink in his face, she tried to spin the cheating allegations and say, you're telling me when you were out and about
Yep.
neglecting me and drinking wine, you weren't cheating. It's like, you don't get to say that. You can totally blame him for being a neglectful husband and father because that's bullshit.
Yeah.
Keep hammering that one home.
Yeah.
But you can't, as the cheater, then try to spin it to you probably cheated. It's
Yeah.
like, no. That's not how this game works.
Yeah.
Just stick with the bad dad, bad husband for a couple years.
Life coach was just. It was. He
Completely.
spoke more than Scheana did, but
He
like
did, and he was only
agreeing with Jesse the whole time.
he's just enabling Jesse. There's no constructive criticism. There's no like, hey man, maybe look inward. All he said was like, don't react because it makes you look like a dick.
That's the other thing with like a life coach versus a therapist. If it was a therapist or a psychologist that was saying it, we would be freaking out
yeah.
and saying like, revoke this person's license, do this. As soon as life coach comes on the screen,
don't take it seriously.
It's going to be funny.
And if you're a life coach at home, and you're probably way better at your job than the ones we see on
yeah, I
TV,
would
so
imagine
don't
so.
take this personally. We're talking about Bravo TV life coaches. It's very specific, but they keep talking, and you know, he gives them the whole like. This sounded like some shit you would read on like a cheesy Instagram post. He's like, you know, you got to think about like watering your garden, and your
Water
life
is
is
your
the garden,
attention.
and water is attention. And if you water your flowers, what happens if you water poison ivy? I was like, I don't even know. Like poison ivy just grows. I'm assuming if you watered it, it would keep growing. But poison ivy's such a bitch because you don't water it and it still grows. So what are we talking about here? What?
I think he scrambled when I was listening to that at the very end of like, I mean, it all like sounds, yes, it's very generic. Like I read a book on therapy one time and I remember this quote.
No, it's I listened to a therapy podcast
But
once.
then he forgot what the quote was at the end.
Yeah.
When he threw poison ivy in there, I'm like, what the fuck
yeah,
are you
what?
talking about?
Why did we take that turn? You could have just said, "What happens if you don't pay
it's
attention
poison,
to your flowers?"
Guys, you don't want to poison your
But
garden.
it completely
not how it
negates
works.
what he was trying to say.
Yeah.
It's like if you focus your attention on your garden, it'll grow. If you don't, and
know
you
what?
focus your attention elsewhere, the flowers die. That's what you say, not
Yeah.
poison.
Or if you focus too much attention over here, you're going to overwater it and it's not going to work.
that would have worked as well.
Could work as well.
But you'd
poison
poison-
ivy.
You know what? He just watched Batman Forever, so he had Uma Thurman in his mind.
So hot in that movie.
That's exactly what it was. He was saying Sub-Zero quotes, or Mr. Freeze. Sorry, Mr. Freeze quotes. If you haven't listened to the puns on
Hey,
Loop-
Batman, chill.
chill. Tonight's forecast: deep freeze.
Great movie.
It's not.
Fucking Tommy
It
Lee
is.
Jones in there too.
Tommy Lee Jones is Two-Face.
Oh wait, no,
that's Batman Forever.
Yep.
It's who's the
Batman 2000.
Oh my god, I forgot about Batman 2000. Batman
Batman and Robin. Batman and Robin is Mr. Freeze and
Poison Ivy, and
Batman
that's
Forever is Jim Carrey as
is that
the Riddler.
Clooney Batman?
Yes, it's Clooney.
Clooney Batman's in Batman and Robin.
Batman 2000 was
And
Val
fucking-
Kilmer, wasn't it?
Yes. No, he was before that. But in Batman and Robin, you also get Alicia Silverstone is Batgirl.
Yep.
At the very end is the big reveal. And
Chris
George
O'Donnell.
Clooney has bat nipples.
Yes, he does.
Bat
Yeah, he
suit
does.
has nipples, which is a very strange choice.
Yep.
Yeah. There you go. There you go. Let's talk about that movie. That's way more fun than this
nipples
episode.
great. Can you milk me?
Anyway, Jesse screams into a pillow and also, once again, makes this guy look like he has no credibility because you're either going to laugh when you're done or you're going to cry. Jesse doesn't do either of those things. He says, I feel a little better.
A little better.
Thanks.
Which, you know what? Makes sense.
Here's $1,000.
Yeah.
Bye.
No way he got charged for that. That's just his friend.
Let's get to Luke and Dodie because they were sweet.
It's such a bright spot on this show.
I know. And like, who would have thought that they're like the normal voice of reason?
Luke has become like the best. He's the number one guy in the group.
He is the number one guy in the group. And he's the only man in the group.
Yeah.
I love Luke and Dodie. These two give me a reason to keep watching this show. But they just rented a new house with a pool. They're only renting because they're not figuring out, where they're going to put their roots. We know that Luke doesn't want to be in LA forever. But this is the first step in his big plan. As we know, he's been thinking about a proposal, so that's exciting. And then Jasmine joins, and we get a trip recap. It seemed like she just kind of like understood, like, I think I came in too hot.
And like Dodie and Luke were able to somewhat pull Jasmine out of Britany's ass.
Yes, briefly.
She scurried right back up there
Ever
at the
so
end of the
briefly.
episode. Just briefly, you could see a look on her face during this conversation where she's like,
Yeah.
yeah, all right. I guess that makes sense. And by the way, Luke and Dodie are only just speaking logic.
Sure.
They're not like spraining any brain muscles to go through all of this. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to look at it from the other way. So yeah, of course Jasmine's going to have that kind of reaction. She's sitting here, she's outnumbered, and it's like, oh, maybe I did get a wrong read on this one, guys.
Because again, like, I don't want to take away from what occurred between her and Danny, because I think that's important. I think that if she feels some type of way, it's not up to anybody to tell her to feel different.
Nobody can say like she's like blowing it out of proportion.
Or like, get over it, like
that would be insane to say. Like, you can't do that. You can look at the certain things in what she's doing and say, why the fuck are you going with Britany?
In this moment.
You have a plausible reason to be upset, to feel weird that Danny's doing these things. And again, this is another conversation where, she like kind of brings it up to them, but you didn't bring it up to Nia.
No, and that's the thing. Like, if you got to the root of it, and again, if you had talked to Nia, period, you didn't even talk to her.
I don't even know if she talked to Britany about it. Like, she could just be.
They were just talking, because that's the whole thing. The focus of the conversation was they don't share their life. It's like, but that's not the root here. And also, I'll give her, again, because of this scene, let's just go through this scene, and I'll tell you my perspective of it. But she apologizes, like, I got a little hot, and, it's just Danny's drinking comes up, and Luke's like, well, and Dodie, they're both like, well, couldn't you just ask, like, hey, is Danny drunk? Her confessional, I'm like, dude, she's like, I'm sorry, but you stand in a booth and talk. How tired can you be? I'm like, he still has 3 kids under 3. He left Santa Barbara at 11 p.m. to get home, woke up early to get there at 5 a.m. to work, left there and drove. Yes, he's fucking tired.
We know he had to stop at home to get some shit.
Because Nia,
heard that phone call.
Heard that conversation. And also, he has 3 children under 3. Even if he didn't work, he's probably fucking exhausted. I did feel for her when she says, people don't take my relationship seriously because when they see 2 women together, they think it's not as big of a deal. You're more susceptible to people poking fun or people making inappropriate advances or comments. I'm like, all right, that makes sense.
For sure.
That makes sense. That's got to be difficult to deal with. And then you had to deal with that with one of your friends. And you're right. Had this been Janet, had this been a woman in the group that's married to a man, it would have been a much bigger problem. Totally agree with you. So now we've identified what the problem is. That's the problem. So let's address the problem. If you have a problem with Danny, you have every right. Go talk to Danny. Go talk to Nia about Danny. Hey, I'm uncomfortable with him still.
It's almost like what she's doing is she hears Janet and Britany talking about Danny's drinking. But really what they're talking about is that Danny and Nia don't show their relationship, the true relationship.
And she jumped on that.
She's still jumping in that direction because now she can have backup to talk about what she really wants to talk about, which is Danny's drinking.
But I don't even know if she knew that.
Completely misguided.
But that's where I give her grace and thinking like, okay, maybe she didn't recognize that was still eating her up.
She said it verbatim like 7 times that night that Nia's not sharing her life.
No, I know.
Yeah.
I'm saying maybe she didn't get to the part like understanding that she was still upset about the Danny situation that she had gone
Possibly, yeah, because the confessionals are a couple of weeks later, so she may have pieced it together.
That's
at
what I
some
mean.
point.
Like at some point,
maybe during
it
this
kinda
conversation with
clicks,
Luke and Dodie,
perhaps
kind of pieced it together, or on the way over when she was debriefing from the weekend. That's a possibility for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, I could see that, and yeah, maybe she was. It was just she's triggered. Here's people talking about his drinking. She's triggered by the drinking. Let me just jump on board.
Yeah, and then puts
Still
it together
misguided,
down the
but
road
yeah.
where she's like, "Oh, that's why I was so upset." And that again, I can sympathize with
That's
that.
why I just get so upset when it comes to Jasmine, because I agree with what the root is.
Absolutely.
Fully understand what the root is, and I also know that Danny and Nia are completely normal people for the most part. And if you talk to them specifically about this, and I know you already had like the conversation with Danny and he apologized and whatever, but if you talk to Nia about it too, it'll probably get resolved and you're going to feel better. Instead, you're shacking up with Frick and Frack over here who are idiots and losers. And they're just trying to further some weird storyline. And I feel like it's just getting to a point now where we're going to just drag this along for episode after episode. And it's going to piss everybody off.
Yeah, I agree. We're running that risk, but we get a scene with Luke and Danny picking out a ring. He picks out a really nice ring from Kyle Chan.
There's no other jeweler in LA, baby.
He's the only LA jeweler. I like Kyle Chan. I have no problem with him making an appearance here.
I was watching the VPR episode the other night of Jax going to Kyle to pick out Britany's ring.
Oh, God. Oh, boy.
My dad left me some money. I spent most of it on the ring.
Oh, boy.
And then I stole his retro car.
Oh, my God. But it was sweet to hear Luke talk about her, and I do believe that, this is not a TV romance. I do believe these two are in love, and,
chance.
he's talking about their ups and downs, the highs and the lows, and it hit me on a drive to Indiana. It was a 5,000-mile hike, and we had 4 dogs in tow, and I'm like, wow, who else would do this with me? And I knew she's the love of my life. I was like, fuck yeah, I love to hear that. The bright spot of this show. But
A lot's changed, too. I remember in the first season when they were talking about living off the land and, hiking and doing all of this. Kristen wanted nothing to do with any of
Zero.
that. Haven't heard one complaint about anything that Luke wants to do this year.
compromise, baby. It's all
They are
compromise.
just madly in love, those two.
They're in a good spot. It's nice to see. But we get Jesse and Isabella and a quick Michelle FaceTime about dropping off a key. Only thing I want to point out here, okay, because nothing really happens in this scene. But she says that Jesse gives Isabella everything she wants.
Mm-hmm.
Isabella was throwing a little bit of a fit about a key. Not blaming her. She's 4. I'll drive it over. Scene 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of the
Isabella
same
gets
thing.
what she wants.
Kind of the same thing, Mom.
Mhm.
That's all. That's all I'm saying there. It's kind of the same thing. You're the same person, but whatever.
But also, I forgot the Crocs and the orange sippy cup.
Oh, yeah.
I'll bring that over tomorrow.
Yeah.
So that's 2 days in a row now you're going over there.
Yep. Oh, that's a good point. That's a good point. Interesting point. But let's get to Brittany's house for the girl dinner because that's what the majority of this episode really is.
Yeah.
I got multiple pages of notes on this disaster, but get Chef Gino there because he's nice to look at. What's up, Chef Gino? And Nia arrives. You can tell everybody's on edge, and it's this awkward silence as they sit down at the table. It's all the ladies in the group, and Britany finally brings it up, and she apologizes for how it came out. We were drinking all day. Jasmine apologizes as well. Everyone's saying sorry. I'm like, all right, we're off to a good start here. And Jasmine even takes full accountability. I'm not going to blame it on the alcohol. I shouldn't have came at you like that. It's like, that's nice.
Britany can blame it on the alcohol. I won't.
Britany blames it on the alcohol. Jasmine does not. But, Nia goes into why she's upset. She's like, it's really hurtful that you guys decided to do this behind my back. Like, that's the whole thing. And that's when Jasmine brings up dark side Danny.
I feel like we need to know, because I know timeline-wise, we keep going back to, what was it? It was Halloween, so it was October.
Yeah,
And they're filming in, like, July.
right.
Is there more in here?
I don't know.
Like, that's something that I think we do need to focus on at some point, and I think we will probably get more information. But, like, is there more to Dark Side Danny before we start labeling him as all of these things? Like, yes, that had a very...
We've heard...
very uncomfortable night. Yes, he gets blackout. He does certain things.
He does stupid shit.
He does stupid shit, but like, how detrimental is that to the rest of the group, to everybody's relationships, to Nia, to all of these things? Or is it now like, hey, Dark Side Danny, this happened 10 months ago one time, he apologized, nothing's happened since then. And we're still talking about it now when cameras pick back up.
Which is
that's a
interesting.
problem that I'm like, I don't want to go down there because I want to see it play out.
Yeah.
To see, because now Jasmine's talking about like being triggered and she realizes why. So it's like, okay, let's, find out more about that.
And there's no timeline for when she's supposed to be
apology,
over it.
and this is when the apology video comes up again. I'm like, this is a whole scene.
So
that
why
we're
can't we-
referencing?
Because if we see the scene and like you said, there's no contrition. It's like
And it seems from what we can see, there is contrition.
But it's 5 seconds.
But it's still also, it's just Danny with Jasmine and Melissa.
Yep.
And I don't really get the sense from Jasmine and Melissa in that 5 second scene that it was going super well based on how it was.
Which is also
now we're like reading into context of a 5 second video. So show us the whole thing.
Yeah, I agree. And like, I can't stress enough. I'm not
Yeah.
trying to take away from what happened. And if she's still upset about it, she has every right to be upset about it. And if she didn't realize she was upset about it and it's just kind of coming to her now, that's okay too.
I think it's just the way that this dinner goes and like the way that
It's the ending of the
painting
dinner. It's the
Danny.
ending of the dinner that throws everything
And
kind
it's
of
like,
into
all
a
right,
loop.
are we being too unfair now? Are we
That's where-
labeling too much to somebody who doesn't really deserve it?
That's exactly what it is. And
Yeah.
it's not taking away from the moment that Jasmine had with him. It's more so like, all right, well, we were going one direction. The minute Nia leaves, we decided to take another direction. But before we get to that point, Nia brings up the fact that it's like, yeah, it took weeks for us to get better from this entire thing, you know? And like, it took weeks for me to get through it. We went to a therapist, we went to group therapy, went to marriage counseling. It's like, this was a much bigger deal than maybe you guys understood. And maybe that's the shortcoming of Danny and Nia, where it's like, all right, well, tell us that. Like,
Right.
if you guys went through all of this to fix this situation, for Danny to address the fact that he really fucked up, relay that info so they know that this was not, because maybe that's part of it. Jasmine thinks that this was kind of brushed and she's upset that it wasn't addressed.
For sure.
And I would feel some type of way about that too. So that's where they fell short. And that you can definitely be like, all right, this is part of the show. Like, why the fuck didn't you tell us that you guys were going to marriage counseling? Why didn't you tell us that you guys worked through this whole thing? But that's when Michelle jumps in with her one line of the night and she goes, well, you pretend that everything's perfect. It's like, all right, here we go. This seems to be the only thing we can throw at these two. So let's get into this. And she brings up her background. She was homeless as a kid. Nobody knew this story. Her and her mom went from shelters to parks to backyards to campsites, getting kicked out of places. She slept in a car as an adult. She had a job, but she would sleep in the parking lot. And so like all of these things kind of shaped who she is. And she realized through therapy, like this can either destroy you or this can make you stronger. And her way of addressing it is by being super positive all the time.
Yep.
That's what she wants to bring to the table, because if she doesn't, it's the exact opposite from all the negative shit she's gone through. Makes total sense. That's why she acts this way. That's why she doesn't address certain things. That's why she pretends like it's okay until it's time to address certain things. Everyone seems,
Everything makes total sense.
and everyone seems to understand. They're like, okay, that makes
Holy
sense to
shit.
me.
All right.
Like, understood. It's
Didn't get a weird one-off comment where it's like you should have shared that on camera before.
no, it was
No.
just like everyone takes it pretty well.
Quite honestly, and this would be a shame because I like Nia a lot. Obviously, you know, Danny, I could take or leave at this point anyway. But I like Nia a lot. She
too.
seems, I'm going to throw the word authentic out there. She seems authentically very nice. They shouldn't be on the show.
I don't think so.
The way this show is going, they're going to have to leave.
Yeah, it just doesn't seem to
Because
fit.
like they're too normal, and if you want them to fight on camera, they're not going to.
No.
They're going to go home and they're going to argue and they're going to figure it out. They're going to go to therapy and they're not going to say, "Hey guys, we went to therapy last night. How'd that go?" They're not going to have some crackpot therapist on the valley.
Not some life coach.
They're going to go to a legitimate therapist, a legitimate marriage counselor to get through all of the things they're going through with 4 kids now and moving and all of this stuff. So they're going to go live a normal life. They need to be off the show.
I agree. But in this moment is when the tequila in the closet thing comes up. Now, there is a place for this where Janet can say, hey, I saw this. It made me uncomfortable. Give Nia that info. Doubling down and saying, if you're concerned about his drinking, you can talk to us about it. I was in a relationship with an addict and an alcoholic. It's like, okay, time out.
Yep.
Because now you're labeling, which is a very dangerous thing to do. Can we agree that Danny's relationship with alcohol might be a little questionable?
Sure.
Should it be addressed?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say.
It
Is
could
it?
easily also be he's tired. He worked all day. He's got 4 kids. He doesn't get to cut loose that much. And he made a bad decision to drink a little bit of tequila in a secret way. And it could be as simple as that.
Now,
We've seen real problems on these shows, and you guys have been around real problems from VPR. Is this something that needs as much attention as Jax doing coke every day?
so that's
probably not.
That's my biggest problem, is because Nia obviously gets defensive and she's like, that's a pretty big implication. By doing this, Janet, by bringing this up in this moment on this show and saying alcoholic and drug addict, you're immediately drawing comparisons to Jax Taylor.
Yep.
Danny is not Jax Taylor.
Nope.
Not by a long shot. So by you doing this, you're putting that out there that they're on the same level.
Yep.
What you're also doing is labeling him as an addict or alcoholic when you don't really know the situation very well. You can look from afar and say, these things are concerning. Or be a good friend and say, hey, I saw him doing this in the closet, made me a little uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Period.
Something like, hey, I saw him doing this in the closet. I didn't think that you knew about it.
I wanted to make
It
sure
made me
you
uncomfortable, and I wanted to make sure that you knew, because we've seen Danny drunk before.
Given his
we
history.
didn't want things to get weird.
Sure.
He ended up falling asleep and ended up not bothering anybody. Fine. But that's not always going to happen.
Yep.
If they kept it there, fine. You don't go talking about all of this. And by the way, as we all saw, and probably most people out there saw, on the stupid 6 minutes for next week's episode, Janet outs Nia for being at Al-Anon.
Yeah.
Which we don't know. Nia hasn't confirmed if she did or not. But you can't do that. What's the Anon stand for?
Anonymous.
Yeah. And she goes to her confessional in that moment in the beginning of this episode, talking about Danny's drinking, talking about how, I thought that she went to Al-Anon, so I figured she would understand how this goes.
Not your place.
You can't fucking say that.
Absolutely.
And by the way, Bravo airs that in their stupid 6-minute preview, which, by the way, let's just wait a week to watch the fucking episode.
Yep.
Don't get me started on that shit. And then when they go and air the episode last night and this morning on Peacock, they scrub that.
Which is
still there.
It's such bullshit that they did that. I can't believe they did that. For Janet to out her for going, it completely negates the purpose of going to an Al-Anon meeting, which means also she is aware of what's going on with Danny, if that is true. And she doesn't need Janet to then be the end-all be-all of who is and who is not an
If it
alcoholic.
was even for Danny, it could have been for somebody in her family,
Exactly.
too.
We don't know.
Be a friend. We don't know what she's going there for.
Nope.
It's not your place to out.
not your
And by the
fucking
way,
business.
Bravo's then complicit by releasing that fucking tape.
100%. And like the whole thing about and why labels are so dangerous when it comes to recovery, let's say Danny is, okay? I'm not saying he is or is not. I don't have enough information on it. Let's say he is, and now he hears this. What you will do to an addict or alcoholic by outing them like this is send them in a spiral in which they fucking do a lot of damage to themselves, people around them. They do a lot of drugs, they drink. It's a really dangerous thing to do. So all of these idiots that are sitting there acting like because they've known somebody that's gone through this, that they're suddenly experts on the topic, is dangerous if Danny actually has a problem. And they don't think that through because this is an I gotcha moment at Nia where they're like, we finally broke down the perfect marriage. Yay us. It's like, no, you might be doing irreparable damage to both Danny, Nia, their relationship, their marriage, their children, just by saying some off-base shit like this that you don't really know about. I'm sorry that you dated an addict and alcoholic and you had to go through certain things. That doesn't make you the expert to talk about whether or not Danny has a problem. And the fact that they did it so haphazardly,
It was almost like wow, we got to such a great place. I didn't expect Nia to talk about all of this. Janet then raises her hand. I had something to say that I thought about. I thought about this on the ride over. I've been rehearsing. Do you guys mind if I just go ahead?
Let me practice my line one more time.
It was so off base. It was so off base after hearing that heartbreaking story to not look at her and go, that makes sense. You address the problem. The problem, whatever reason that Britany had, was that she's not sharing enough.
That was the problem.
Here's why.
Yep.
Okay. We talked about Danny's drinking. It seems like they've gone to therapy and discussed it. She's more than aware of the whole Jasmine situation. They've addressed that. We can talk about that more if it makes you comfortable. Fine. Great. This has nothing to do with any of that.
Nope.
Janet just wanted to speak up and throw a wrench in there just to stir the pot.
Because she's upset that they're happy. Yeah, she's a piece of shit. And she's upset that Danny and Nia have a good marriage. And she's pissed off about that and wants to throw a wrench into the whole thing. And even in a confessional, like before she gets to the confessional, it's like, it feels like he's hiding something and that's a problem. It's like, all right, dude. And then her confessional, God forbid I compare a difficult time in my life to your perfect fucking husband. Yes, yes, because what you did was date a problematic drinker and drug addict, okay? What you just did is draw a comparison to that dude whom you have a really bad history with to the point that you're bringing it up now. And then you compared that guy to Danny, a father of 3 who's married to Nia, who's very defensive of her husband, who has a checkered past and needs to check on his alcohol relationship, but you're trying to paint him in the light of a Jax Taylor. That's a fucking insane leap to make because you saw him drinking tequila in a closet.
By the way, who throws stones?
People
now
in
we're going to
glass
start
houses.
questioning things. Who's got the perfect husband on the cast? Jason looks pretty perfect.
Jason's starting to look
Is he?
pretty sketchy now
Yep.
because of all of this shit. When you're pointing fingers left and right, you got to point fingers at yourself too
Mm-hmm.
and see what the fuck is up. But Dodie is like, all right, let's pinky promise. We're only going to go to people with their issues. We're not going to talk behind each other's back. Pinky promise. Dodie says it herself. I'm not very confident about this one, but Nia doesn't feel like Janet's a friend at all. She's like, all we've worked through, everything that I've done to address this, I feel like it's now being used against me. I was like, that's the perfect way to put it.
Yep.
That's the perfect way to put it. And the minute that they leave, Jasmine still has an issue. And she kind of figures out here, like, maybe I'm still triggered by this thing. I'm like, that's okay.
Yep.
What's not okay is you guys just made this stupid pact with your pinkies to not talk shit. And the minute she walks out, you're talking shit. And now you're an expert again. I know signs. Like, are you kidding me? I know signs. Like, I've been in this situation before. And she's still being defensive. And then Dodie points out, it's like, whoa. We shouldn't be doing, like, she just poured her heart out. We shouldn't be calling somebody an alcoholic. That's pretty problematic. And she's like, I'm not calling him an alcoholic. I was like, you just did.
are.
You literally
Exactly
just
what you're
did.
doing.
You
Yep.
said that you can spot it from a mile away.
It's entirely disingenuous when you start off the conversation by saying, I'm sorry, I get so uncomfortable when people cry.
Yeah, when they cry, I
I'm
just
not
can't.
buying it. And it's like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
I don't know.
I just
don't
don't
know.
understand. And like I think they're all just jealous of Nia, to be honest.
too.
I think they think that she is the perfect housewife and she has all these kids and she's beautiful and there's all these things going on and
She's
there's no
nice.
problems. She's very nice to everybody. And they're looking in the mirror and they're like, ugh, we got to knock her down a couple of pegs.
That's
It's
what
like,
it feels like.
I just don't understand how anybody could hear that story and then still have animosity towards her. I don't get
In
it.
this moment, like, save
Just
it.
garbage people.
It just makes no
They're
fucking
just
sense.
garbage people.
Calling somebody an alcoholic is just not the way to go about things, especially on TV in this manner, especially when the other person involved with this show that is an alcoholic and an addict is Jax Taylor. So again, people are going to draw comparisons to him because that's the closest example of what you just described. But it was, just brutal. And Nia goes back and talks to Danny and like debriefs about the whole thing and says, Janet called you an alcoholic. And Danny's upset about the whole thing, brings up the tequila thing, which again, yeah, some red flags.
Yep.
They need to figure that part out.
But apparently he did.
He told her about the
Nia.
tequila. So it's like, all right, well, that kind of softens the blow a little
Yeah.
bit. Like, why Janet needs to be involved past that made me feel kind of weird is beyond me. Why she feels the need to go home to Jason and talk about this drinking and saying it's worth questioning his relationship with alcohol. Yeah. Dude, great. That's a great realization. That's the question. Hey, maybe he does have an issue. Maybe we should talk to Nia gently.
Yeah.
Fine.
That time has passed, by the way.
That's way gone. Because
you
of
guys
how
sitting down
handled
and
it.
trying to have like a heartfelt conversation with Danny about all of this.
Gone.
He's heard about the whole thing. He knows what has happened. He's
should
not
ha-
going to take that information well, whether he's an addict or not, which again, we can't say. But if he is or isn't, he's not going to take Jason sitting down with him after what Janet said.
no.
That Nia just told him that Janet just said.
Who would take
He's not
Jason
gonna take it
seriously
well.
anyway?
Yeah, like
And the other part of it's like, if you really truly cared about Nia or Danny, and if you really truly were concerned about him having a problem, you would have gone to Nia and Danny as a friend before you went and talked shit to the entire cast.
wait, 9 months ago you would have done it.
Right. And
You should have been having these conversations in October. Why weren't these conversations happening in October? There was no cameras.
exactly.
It's not part of the show.
Exactly.
We
So
gotta
if
wait.
you
These
really
people are too
gave a
fucking
fuck,
drained.
you would go to them and say, hey, I'm concerned about Danny's drinking. And that's a valid conversation to have given his history.
Janet watched VPR. She knows.
It's brutal.
knows how it works.
It's fucking brutal. But we get scenes for next week, and it's like, you better make sure that your side of the street is fucking clean if you're going to throw these rocks. Because, hey, there's one thing about the funniest thing is when I said that Dodie's not a liar in the first episode, everyone's like, she lied about cheating with Jax. It's like, yeah, I know. But when she has brought up any kind of scandal or accused somebody of cheating or accused somebody of having a girlfriend on the side, it has rung true every single time. So when Dodie says, Jason, why don't you wear your wedding ring when you go out? That to me is like he did something.
Yep.
He fucked up. And now,
going
Janet,
on.
because of how you handle things, that's going to come to light.
Yep.
And it's going to be bad. And rightfully so.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, all in
By
all,
the way, Dodie and Janet still really haven't come back together.
Mm-mm.
So Sure you want to poke that bear?
I don't. No, that's the other thing too. Just because Dodie's been dormant this season, don't forget that she is still Kristen Doute, and she wrote the book on this game. So I think Janet has. She's a little too big for her britches. She thinks she's hot shit, and she's about to get checked, I believe.
Yeah.
But let's get to some questions.
First up here from Christine D. Philippus. Is production ruining the show, or are Janet, Jasmine, and Britt miserable and projecting?
Yep.
Yep.
All the
answer
above.
to that is yes.
All of the above.
From Diana and Jerry. Is everybody okay? This episode made me feel like I was losing it.
No, we're not.
Yeah.
And neither are the people on the show.
Yeah, we are not okay.
It was such a staunch difference and like a just fucking complete 180 on the season.
From Jacqueline Michelle Kress. Do you think Britany was projecting way too much on Nia?
Yes.
Yep. This is the type of I've gone through all of this, and I'm upset that other people aren't going through the same shit.
Correct.
From Ryan Stoneman, 83. If you weren't a Nia fan, I hope you are now, and we all still hate Janet, right? Question mark.
Who hasn't been a Nia fan?
I don't know. I think people probably called her boring.
I guess. She's always been, I've always liked her. She's nice.
This is funny. From Kendi Lynn, is talking shit about their friends, Janet and Jason's foreplay. Quite possibly. I'm sure it gets Janet going.
I think it gets Janet going. I think, I don't know, Jason, Janet, I don't know.
We don't
It's a
know.
weird situation.
From Nikki Mano 23, is this all a proxy fight between Kristen and Britany for number one girl in the group?
I don't think so.
I don't think
Dodie's
so.
not really activated at all. She's about to be because Janet is going to fuck around and find out.
Yeah. We'll do one more in here. This is actually a pretty good one. From Yoga Big Gabba.
Yo, Gabba Gabba.
Yep, Yo Gabba Gabba.
That's a show.
There's an I in there. Whatever. How much of Janet's personal life do we actually know?
None.
None.
She doesn't share anything.
She doesn't share.
She just throws. She likes Dave and Buster's and Taco Bell.
To be fair, I don't think that she was on the train of you need to share more. I think she was just salivating at the more like I can call him an alcoholic.
Yeah, throw Danny under the bus.
Yeah.
I don't know. This show is on a weird track so fast. It was like usually we can feel the downtrends coming.
We were like, Jax is in rehab. We're gonna have a couple of episodes here without him. It's gonna be great. Jesse and Michelle looks like it's gonna just blow up every week. Nope. Completely wrong.
It's such a weird turn, dude. I'm blaming Jermaine. When in doubt, blame Jermaine. Jeremiah ruins shows. He's the fucking Thanos of Bravo.
Yeah.
He snaps his fingers and fucks shows into the ground.
Yep.
I don't know where we go from here. I don't know what to expect next week. The Jason scandal might save the season. Like that has the legs to do that.
Just because, and I don't even give a shit what Jason says about it.
No.
We have to hold Janet's feet to the fire.
That's what I'm saying. Like you have thrown stones for 2 years now. So now it's your turn.
Yep.
Like that's the only thing I can think of. But this other shit needs to get resolved because we can't keep hammering down the same issues week to week because they're stale. The show's stale. Scheana and Lala are not the way to fix it. If I see Brock, I'm gonna lose my fucking mind.
He'll be there soon.
I need this show to get back on track. And fucking we called it.
We can end it on a good note.
What?
On the after show, they had Nia and Schwartz sitting together. And Nia was explaining that she just doesn't show that much on the show because like they like to keep things behind closed doors if they're getting into an argument.
Mm-hmm.
Schwartz goes, "Well, you mean I was doing it wrong the whole time? Because I used to just do it with the doors wide open in front of the cameras."
And the problem with Schwartz is what he would do is all of a sudden the mask would slip and he'd say like the most cohesive, well said with high vocabulary sentence out of nowhere, and you're like, where the fuck did that? And then he'd be like, oh, just kidding, haha. Like he would let slip that he's a lot smarter than he lets on. But I don't know, dude. That was a bummer. It was a bummer week. Bummer app. Hopefully they get back on track. But Jermaine's involved for the entire season. I don't have a whole lot of hope anymore. I really thought that we got through it without him fucking it up, and here we go. And
By
it's
the way,
same tropes.
The reunion filmed last or 2 weeks ago, so we might not even be able to talk about all this stuff.
That's the other part. Yeah, because they had to do it early, which, obviously understandable because Nia and Dodie were expecting, so that makes sense. But, like...
Still like my theory better. Jax is gonna blow up again. Let's get him sober.
Yeah, that's the. I don't know. You got anything else?
Nope.
No, that's our show, bros. Got to go.